Hey you guys, welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, then welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you one way to make a king cake. Did you know that Mardi Gras started in Mobile, Alabama? That's my hometown. A lot of people don't know that. Well, now you know. Anyways, this is really simple and easy to make, you guys, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is to do this. It's just a big old cinnamon roll. So let's get into it. So like I said, you guys, a king cake is basically just a cinnamon roll, just shaped the way you want it shaped and filled with the stuff that you want to fill with. So whatever sweet bread you want to use, you can use for this. This is my favorite recipe here. I use 1 cup of water and 1 cup of milk and half a cup of butter. Try not to make a mess with the milk like I just did, but it's okay. That's what happens when you're cooking from scratch. And you're going to heat this up until it's about 100 degrees, you guys, Fahrenheit. And so I usually put mine in the microwave. You can do it on the stove, but to me, the milk starts to heat up and scald really quickly, and you don't want to kill your yeast in this recipe because this is a yeast bread recipe. You want to use whatever your favorite sweet bread yeast recipe is, you guys. And so I put mine in the microwave, and I make sure that the butter is soft but not melted because the microwave does have hot spots. And so after it comes out and you stir it, it'll be the perfect temperature. We also need an egg, so let's go ahead and whisk this egg together really quickly while we're waiting on the microwave. And here's our milk mixture, and it's warm, and I just add a little bit of sugar just to get the yeast activated and give it something to eat on. So the sugar will help the yeast activate really well, you guys, in my experience. Mix that together really well. Once the butter is nice and melted and all the hot spots are gone, you can test this out. You can either do your wrist, which is a really soft, tender piece of skin, or your finger, or you can use one of the thermometers like I have and make sure it's about 100, no more than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So this came in at about 115 degrees, you guys, and that was just perfect. Do not kill your yeast. I cannot emphasize that enough, you guys. This is one of the 2 most important lessons that I learned when I was cooking and baking over the years. I found out really early on that I was killing my yeast and my dough would not rise. So it should just be warm to the touch. Okay, and then we're going in with some active dry yeast. I used a full teaspoon because this is equivalent to 2 packs. So if you're just buying the packs, it's 2 packs of active dry yeast. So this recipe does use a good amount of yeast. Most recipes only use 1, but this one used 2. And I do like the extra yeasty kind of flavor of the dough. So now we're going to get started with about 4 cups of flour. You are going to need more flour, but you just start off with about 3 or 4 cups just to get the wet and dry ingredients mixed in, and then you add in flour as needed. So about 4 cups to get started. Then we're going to put in about half a cup of sugar, you guys. And make sure you put in some salt because that's going to offset a little bit of the sweet flavor and give your tongue and your palate a nice full-bodied feel to this bread. I love making yeast. I love making dough, yeast dough bread, whatever. I love it, you guys. I've been doing it for so many years, and my kids love it too. So now I have somebody to actually make this for, so I'm not eating it all myself. So I use my KitchenAid, and that's what makes this really super simple for me, you guys. The dough hook actually kind of kneads the dough for me, so I don't have to knead it by hand. And so there's our yeast mixture, and you can tell that it's bloomed because it's nice and puffy looking in there, and it looks a little bit gunky, which is creepy a little bit, but that's exactly what you want it to look like. If you still have yeast granules that haven't puffed up, you guys, something's wrong and your yeast didn't activate. And so you might want to get your milk a little bit warmer, or maybe it's too hot and you kill the yeast. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start adding in the liquid ingredients and also add in the egg, you guys. You want to do that all at one time. And once you do that, then you're going to let the dough get really wet and determine how much flour you need to add back in. I love using my KitchenAid mixer because it makes it so simple not to overwork your dough or over dry out your dough. So when you're mixing dough by hand, it's totally possible, you guys. I did it for many years, but you always add too much flour because you have to keep the dough from sticking to your hand. Well, with the KitchenAid mixer, you don't have to worry about that because the dough hook does all the work for you. And so in my experience, the doughs that are a little bit stickier and a little bit wetter are the doughs that come out the best. And you really can't help it when you're mixing your dough by hand, like I said. So it's totally possible, but I think you get a better result and experience with the KitchenAid mixer. And so here I think I added in maybe 1 or 2 more cups of flour until my dough looks like it's starting to just stick together. And what you want is for the dough to eventually get worked through the kneading process, and the dough hook is going to knead it. And so you want it to go at a low to medium speed, you guys. And as you can see, the gluten strands will shorten and stretch and shorten and stretch, and eventually you'll start to see this come together like a ball. And I'll show you the different stages of how this comes together, but I let this go for about 5 or 10 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm going to make my colored sugar that's going to go on top with those nice colors for our Mardi Gras colors. And this is actually gel food coloring. And so here you can see the dough is coming together more, and it's going to actually start to fall apart and come together again. And I just know that those are the stages that the dough goes through when I'm getting a really good dough that's about to form. So this is about 1/4 cup of sugar in some Ziploc bags. I go in with a little bit of food coloring on each bag, just really a little tipful of a knife. And you just work this in, you guys, and you'll have you some colored sugar sprinkles in no time. Or you could actually just dye your icing if you wanted to, you guys. That's another option. So here the dough is just the slightest bit tacky. As you can see, it still has a stretch to it. This, you wouldn't really be able to work this with your hand, but because I use the machine, I can just touch it gently and pull it apart. And I know once it rises, it's going to be a really good dough. And so just get this out of here. Again, I like my dough a little bit on the sticky side. And so I'm going to get a spatula, scoop this out, and put it into another bowl with some oil. Make sure that the dough does not dry out, and cover it with a towel. I'm going to be doing a cream cheese icing for this, you guys. You can put cream cheese inside of your king cake. A lot of people do that. I really just prefer a cream cheese icing on top. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. And I am going to be adding pecans to this because my husband loves pecans. And it's just going to be so delicious. So look at this dough and how it's just the slightest bit sticky on my hand. Again, you would not be able to work this with your hand. You would have to use a little bit more flour, but because I use my KitchenAid, I don't have to do that. And it just has a really dense type of texture, and it looks so good. Let that rise for about 2 hours, you guys. Okay, so it's 2 hours, and look, our dough has doubled in size, you guys. So I'm gonna go in with some white sugar, brown sugar, pecans, and cinnamon. So let's cut this dough in half, and I'm going to be doing a double strand method for this king cake. You can do a 3-strand braid if you want. A lot of people do that. I didn't want as many kind of crispy pieces. I wanted it to be a little bit more ooey gooey, like a cinnamon roll. And the more braids or layers to your braid that you add, the more you're going to have crispier pieces. So I didn't want that. So let's just slap some butter, cinnamon, sugar. That's both our white sugar and brown sugar, and pecans on here, you guys. This wound up being, I think, about 20 by 13 inches, if you want to know the exact measurements. I'm just kind of used to rolling it out when I make my cinnamon rolls on my countertop, so I know on my island just where my landmarks are. So this was about 20 by 13 when I measured, and then I kind of rolled a couple more times out. And you just gently roll this in from the sides, you guys. Put a little bit of butter at the ends to seal it off, and that's it. Make sure that your seam is facing down so that when it rises, it will just kind of blend into the rest of the dough, and it won't pop out when it's baking. So we're going to do this process all over again, you guys, and I'll show you how we get this little 2-strand twist for our king cake going. A king cake is whatever you want to put in it, you guys. Some people put raisins in their king cake. Some people do just one roll, like one twist, like a complete cinnamon roll into an oval shape. Some people do the 3-strand braid. It's just whatever you want to do. Like I said in the beginning, it's just a big old cinnamon roll. You can do a royal icing if you want to. And that's me just kind of measuring how much, the measurements of it, so I could tell you guys. So I just kind of know on my fingers what's an inch and what's 2 inches. So a royal icing, like a drizzle, would be really good with this, you guys. But when I tell you my family enjoyed this, the next day it was almost gone. So I was hoping it would last a few days for dessert, but it was gone. And I used most of my brown sugar on the first roll, but that's okay. This is still going to be good and nice and caramelized, and you'll see that later. Don't go too heavy with the butter and the sugar because it will make a little bit more of a caramel drizzle at the end, and you'll see that. Look at those pecans. This was so delicious, you guys. So here we go. This is how I seal the ends from another angle. Put a little bit of butter here at the seams and just roll it together and put the seam side down. And I'm going to show you how we get our 2-strand twist design together. Look how full that roll is, you guys. That's all that yummy goodness on the inside. I love working with dough. I love making biscuits and cinnamon rolls and just pastries. I started doing this when I was about 15, and my aunt was living with us, and she's actually a pastry chef now, and she was the one who kind of taught me about working with yeast, and I always think about that when I'm making dough, you guys. So here you go. You just take one leg and flop it over the other leg and continue going until you have a nice 2-strand twist, and then you come around and just tuck the alternating sides together, put a little bit of butter to seal it, press it together, and do the same thing for the 2 leftover legs, you guys. And doesn't that look gorgeous? I'm just gonna pop this on a baking sheet with parchment paper, and you let this rest about 30 or 45 more minutes, you guys. Put it in the oven at 375, and I think this went for about 30 minutes. I let it get nice and brown because I wanted to make sure everything on the inside was done, especially because I had some layers overlapping. I did not want any undone parts of my bread, so I let this get nice and brown, you guys. Make sure at this point you either put it in the oven at 30 or 45 minutes after it's risen that second time, or put it in the refrigerator. You don't want this dough going too long, you guys. Sometimes you think if you let it rise longer that you'll have a fluffier dough, but it's just not the case. Sometimes you'll ruin your finished product by letting it rise too long. And here I have some cream cheese, and I just let that sit on the oven while my bread was cooking, and it actually got a little warm, a little bit room temperature-ish. And I have some vanilla extract, 1 cup of confectioner sugar, and milk. And so I just went in with capfuls of milk until I got my desired consistency. And I think it was about 4 capfuls. Do not just layer the milk in here, you guys. You're going to have a really sloppy end product. It only takes a few capfuls to get this desired product. And look at that bread, you guys. It is so gorgeous and delicious. Oh my God, I was so excited at this. The kids were excited. They kept coming downstairs asking me if dessert was ready. And as you can see, I do have a little bit of spillage of that sugar on the inside, the caramelization. And I'm going to be moving this over into a cake dish shortly so that I can do my final decorating, you guys. This was so gorgeous. I was just admiring this. My husband did come help me move it so that we didn't rip or tear any pieces of the king cake. And look at that, you guys. How beautiful is that? I had to give you guys a little bit of action here. It was so gorgeous. I was so excited. I almost didn't want to decorate it, but of course I had to because I have to put my purple, yellow, and green on here for Mardi Gras, you guys. That's traditional Mardi Gras colors. Like I said, I am from Mobile, Alabama, and we celebrate Mardi Gras every year, except for this year because of the pandemic. So unfortunately, we won't be going home for Mardi Gras, but it is a nice, wonderful, family-oriented Mardi Gras. Your kids will have a lot of fun if you go to Alabama, you guys. I've lived in Mobile. I've also lived in New Orleans, and because Alabama is home, there's nothing like Mardi Gras in Mobile, and that's just me. I love it, and it's very family-oriented. So here I'm going in with my colors, you guys, and this will be all done and ready to eat. Look at that. Look how gorgeous this is, you guys. I kept posing with it. I'm going to give you a little bit of bite action here. I'm going to slice into it and show you guys just how ooey gooey this is on the inside. I could not wait to dig into this, you guys. And so I'm going to get a piece of purple. Look at those layers. How gorgeous is that? You can see just how moist and cinnamon and sugary this is with all those different swirls. The icing is just dripping over the sides, you guys. I had to try a piece for y'all. It was so good, so moist, so just everything, you guys. So make sure you try this. Let me know how it comes out in the comments. Have you ever been to Mardi Gras in New Orleans and Mobile? Let me know, you guys. Check me out on YouTube, Everyday Anderson, or everydayAndersons with an S.com.